indigenous cultures of the world. I'll just talk kind of quietly because people live below me. And at the same time, there's a lot of problems, right? Because it doesn't like acknowledge indigenous culture. There's still some themes of white saviorism, which are not great. But there's also a really important message. And it's something that I think a lot of people of all cultures can resonate with, which is the destruction of modern society, the disconnection of the powers that be today that run most of the world, and the industries and the corporations and the extraction. So I expect that a lot of people are familiar with the story and the concept, and it makes me really emotional. I wish I could have gone live immediately after, but I had to drive an hour and everything. So I'm not in the exact headspace I wanted to be like when that movie first ended, but it's powerful. And I think it's an interesting moment that it comes out in our culture in the United States, because there really is this need for all of the clans, the groups of people, right? We're not as tribal as we once were. That's been largely colonized out of us. And a lot of people are doing great at reconnecting and finding our ancestry. But we need everyone. We don't have time for like the activists to handle it, the helping professions to handle it, the environmentalists to handle it. Like, we need everyone, every single person trying to make a difference in whatever way they are, whatever way they can. Like, everyone needs to be actively fighting against this force, this sickness, this virus of destruction and separation and disconnection and just consumption. It's time. Like, the time is now. People have been concerned about the climate for several decades, and the fossil fuel companies have done a great job of literally like hiding the research and creating these narratives like carbon footprint. Like, it's really just up to each individual person to care about what you're doing. No. Like, we're gonna run out of water. It's happening already. The floods, the fires, the storms, the droughts, the food shortages will come, have started to come in some parts of the world. And I don't say all this to make people overwhelmed. I say this because the time is now to really begin to formulate resistance outside of the powers that exist in the society and the authorities that we have been largely socialized to expect will handle those things. I think the difference is, like, people from certain communities and cultures have known for a long time that the powers that be are in many ways the enemy, in many ways the ones perpetuating the most damage, the most violence, the most harm to the most people, to the animals, to all life on the planet, to the trees, to the plants, to the beings in the ocean. And there's a really powerful scene at the end of that movie where the whales are being attacked, and they go from being peaceful, because that's how they've always been, and they confront the destruction of the people that are like breaking the rules, the sacred agreements of how life has existed for so long on this planet. Because for a long time, people didn't take more than they needed, and they understood to not, for example, harvest all the roots, so then the plant wouldn't grow back. These were knowings. People knew what time of year, like what season, that they should pick things and then leave enough on the plants, and you only take a few from each plant, and you talk with the plant, you ask for permission from the plant if you can harvest from it. These were knowings that a lot of cultures used to have, and they were intentionally colonized out of so many people on purpose. There's a book by Robin Wall Kimmerer, who's well known for her book Braiding Sweetgrass, but her other one is called The Service Berry. And she talks about this, how there's this wisdom even among plants and among animals, that there's like a reciprocity, there's a symbiosis where different life forms exist to help each other. They exist to support each other. Like the service berry feeds the birds, and the birds fly, and then they plant more of the plants that will bring more berries. There's like this sacred ancient agreements of life on this planet to nourish each other. And for many eons of humanity's existence, people would only kill the old and the sick animals, and like only take as much as they needed to eat that would sustain them. And we've lost that. I'm not even going to put an exact timeline or exact culture. I mean, obviously the colonization of the Americas shows you what happens when things go wrong there. Because for a long time, the peoples of the Americas, of Abya Yala, of Turtle Island, of the Eagle, Condor, Quetzal lands were thriving. And I'm not saying that people were not violent to each other. That's always been there. It's primal as well. But there were sort of like, there's rules of war now, right? And right now our society is experiencing when they're broken. But there was plenty of trees and clean water, and there were plenty of berries and food, and there was just these knowings that were passed down. And maybe it was because people didn't write them always down. And then at a certain point in time, our society, like the Western society mindset, has taken over, and it's like it only believes things when a university studies it. Otherwise, it's like deemed as not true. And I've watched that happen just in my adult life of the past couple decades of being able to travel around the world and learn from other cultures and learn ancient knowings that people have held. And then, like, for example, the somatic awareness of the body as being essential to our healing. But when I was in graduate school for studying psychology at a very, prestigious university, they didn't mention that. They didn't acknowledge that. They didn't acknowledge spirit. They didn't acknowledge movement or dance or drums or prayer. Like it was barely seen as serious. There's just this therapeutic model that some like Western European man made up once upon a time in his personal perspective. And I'm exaggerating a little bit, oversimplifying, but now there's like, oh my gosh, like somatic experiencing. People need to move their body. The body keeps the score, written by, another European man. And they're like realizing things. And I think a lot of people from the non-dominant mainstream culture, or those who have chosen to depart from it, and spend time with the plants and spend time with the earth and spend time with cultures that still remember, they know that there's something profoundly wrong in our society, and it's kind of coming to a crescendo right now in this moment in the United States. There's like the destruction in order for convenience to happen. Like we've reached the tipping point, and we cannot afford to continue the way that we've been living. And that doesn't mean that like it's like a few people need to, like never use plastic again, although that would be ideal. But we need like a top-down level of reckoning that this culture, this way that the United States has been living, it's finite. It's not going to last. It's not going to work. And the issues happening with basically like this 250 years is the average end of an empire. It's happening. It's declining. And a lot of people have been fed this propaganda that can't happen here, that won't happen here, that, the U.S. like preaches these ideals of democracy, but has never embodied them. And yet certain people have been able to live with the illusion that they have for a long time. And now what's happening with some of these extrajudicial murders, for example, and the complete and utter impunity, and the fact that it's all on video now for people to see, something is cracking. It's like the foundations are cracking. It's like the whole building that has propped up this society is like starting to tip. It's starting to falter, right? Like, makes me think of how people professed in the early 1900s the Titanic ship would never sink. It was unsinkable. And that arrogance, right? To think like humans can create something that will defy the elements, defy nature. That's a fallacy. And a lot of people lost their lives because that ship sank, and they never put enough lifeboats on it because they didn't think that it would sink. It's like we're in this giant moment that like the ship is going down, and certain people we know, like the super rich, the 1%, they're building bunkers because even they know that is not going to last, and they plan to like jump ship and just save themselves. And I don't say this to like make people give up, but I want people to tap into that like camaraderie, that like passion that you see in the movie Avatar of like the good guys, the main characters saying, okay, we need to call on our allies. We need to call on the whale beings. We need to call on the flying beings. We need to call on the other clans. We need to like put aside our differences, because essentially there's a common enemy that brings everybody else together. And this common enemy is that which is destroying the earth, that which is like poisoning the water, that is putting microplastics in all of our food. Like there should be aspects in which all people are coming together And right now, the powers that be have done such a good job of fragmenting us, of like stoking these separate groups, and then forcing us into this like us and them, and they're the problem, and they're the problem, and I can't even believe they believe what they believe, and I can't believe what they believe. Meanwhile, the powers that be are continuing to destroy everything. So I've been trying to think about what can connect us together, and I've actually been doing some like informal one-on-one little mentoring to some folks in my network that are like, okay, I hear you. I'm trying to understand what exactly can I do? How do I, try not to like just fight the hate with hate or fight the separation with separation? And like, where can we find the common humanity? Because yes, for sure, like there's a percentage of people that are, we could say, maybe too far gone, but that's not everyone. And I will stand with that. I refuse to believe that every single person of the other side is everything that we are told to believe that they are. And maybe that's because I work in mental health and I work closely with trying to understand why people think the way they think, why they interact the way they do. And anyway, one of the things I came up with when I was watching the movie Avatar tonight, I was thinking how being a parent, and I myself am not a parent to a human child. I do think of my dog in many ways as like my little being that I protect and I look out for and I care for, and I feel fiercely mama bear about him. And I think that every single human being has this element of like, we need to protect the vulnerable and the innocent. And one of the ways that the MAGA cult has like distorted that for the people in it is they have convinced them that the beings that are being harmed right now, that anyone that is on the recipient end of the injustice, that they somehow deserve it. They've stripped the humanity of those people and then allowed people to say, well, it's okay that it happened to them, to the other. So what I've been doing in the past few days is I've been clicking into the profiles of some people that are writing really callous statements, really like condemning, victim blaming, hateful comments about, the illegals and the immigrants, or even like Renee and Alex who were murdered, like trying to put them into the bad camp or trying to make it seem like they've done something wrong. And then one of these women, like on her own page, it said something like, I will always feed the children. We all care about the children. And then this one man who was writing some really hateful, racist things, like I click onto his page and he like has all these pictures of his little son who's like 5 years old. And I'm like thinking about how, the little boy Liam and the blue bunny hat that was taken, that was detained, that was used as a pawn by ICE and is now like suffering in a detention center. And I'm like, how do we find the common humanity? And I know that, yes, there are some people who maybe it's really far deep in there. But I refuse to believe that everyone who identifies in the camp of MAGA, like I was even talking in this therapist group and there's a therapist saying like, I'm more aligned with MAGA than the liberals. And I'm like, well, a lot of people don't consider themselves either. And she agreed with me. So like, I'm really trying to find this work of where's that common humanity? And I think the idea of being parents, the idea of protecting the vulnerable, the idea that someone is innocent and that if someone is innocent, they do not deserve this kind of injustice and violence happening to them. I really believe that we can reach people in that. Like when I was watching Avatar and, they look at like the mothers and like that like instinct of these I forget what the beings are called, like I forgot. But the blue beings and how, like on different clans and different versions of them, like they're the mother and they want to protect, and they have like this one of them at the end is like dying, but she's like, I'm going to give birth to this baby. And there's like this, how do we harness that like mama bear energy, right? Like I've used this example before that if pretty much any good meaning adult, like any adult with a good heart, which I still believe are the majority of people, if you're like out in a public place and you see a little child like wander up to you, like, and there's no adult accounting for them, you're going to take care of them. You're going to keep them safe. It just happened in the neighborhood I was living in the East Mountains. Like this 5-year-old girl wandered into the local Walgreens and like was unaccounted for. There's no adult. And all these strangers came together like, this little kid is not okay and they're not safe. We need to keep her warm. We need to keep her fed. We need to get her to somewhere safe. And I just like wonder if that's a way in to the hearts of so many people that honestly may be racist, honestly may be classist, honestly may be so indoctrinated into certain belief systems that they they can laugh at other people's pain. I was also reading comments on this video of a Native person that was injured, and just like these comments, 500 of them almost, were so hateful and so callous and like really cruel. And yet if they were hurt, or if someone they care about was hurt, I think they would care. And that shows me that humanity is not so far gone. That shows me that there is a humanity within those people. However, they've been distorted through propaganda to believe that the other, it's okay if they're hurt. And I will take responsibility and say that there are some people that are on the public scene right now that I believe that are causing a huge amount of harm to a lot of people and committing and upholding injustice. And there is a part of my human nature that would not be sad if they got hurt. So I can also tap into that lack of humanity. I can tap into that like primal violence of like, well, they got what they deserve, right? But I think like even I was looking at how this woman who ran Latinas for Trump, like, you know, that's an interesting mindset that she had, but she turned on him. Why? Because she realized that her son could be profiled and taken from her, and like something clicked in her, something changed for her because it was her child. And I know that it's easy to be like, well, what did you think was going to happen? But you know what? She didn't believe that it was going to happen to someone like her. And like, just like I was saying yesterday in my video, how my mom wrote to people that she grew up with in the deep South that are probably racist and pretty MAGA. And she told them that like her own family members are afraid and at risk now of like being pulled over, of being detained, of being deported. And she was able to make it human to them, like put it within certain degrees of separation and familiar to them, and make them realize like, oh, wait, actually good people this is happening to, because we have to remember they're not all seeing the same news. They're not all getting the same stories. They're not all getting the same information. So they are like twisted to believe that it's still only like the worst of the worst criminals. And I know it's hard for those of us who are looking at one version, like not one version, because I do believe it's the truth of the news, but they also believe that what they're seeing, what they're being told is the truth. It's really scary to accept that the authorities that you've been raised to believe are in charge and are professional and are in some way neutral, to imagine that they're all lying, right? Like we all grew up in going to school. And then as I went on my decolonization journey, I began to realize like, whoa, a lot of what they taught me was not true. And they didn't teach me a lot of things. And even as I went on my spiritual evolution and journey, I was like, wow, a lot of things that were taught to me that were the limitations of reality were inaccurate. And certain things that I've experienced in my life have happened to me that science, according to the institutions I studied at, would tell me are impossible. And yet they happen to me. And it's really disorienting. It's like hard to reconcile. It's hard to make sense that these things, some people like have dreams that, you know, something comes true, or some people like have this knowing like, I just shouldn't drive at this green light. I should wait a second. And then like a car goes through, or they hear a voice. Like these things happen. And a lot of like the Western psychology system will tell them like, that's not possible. That's not real. You're crazy, because that's a limitation, a limited belief. So I say all that just to be like, okay, again, I'm not saying that every single person, especially those that are most victimized by hateful, racist people, should go and like, you know, put themselves in harm's way to try to reach the humanity of these people. But I just really implore you to realize that ultimately the win is not to dehumanize and hate other people, all of them, like put all of them into one box, them being people who have the opposing viewpoint or different viewpoints. Like that is not a win. Ultimately, we need everyone coming together and saying like, hey, you do not hurt the children. You do not hurt the earth. You do not hurt innocent beings. This is wrong. And at a certain level, I bet mothers from every like part of the spectrum of politics, if they saw in front of their eyes a 5-year-old child being taken by masked men and like harmed and hurt and cold and hungry, and like, I think every single one of those people's hearts would say, this is wrong. And so I still believe that there is a way to reach people, and it's not everyone's job to do it, and it's not everyone that you're trying to reach. But I will not stop with this message, because there are a few of the evil villains controlling all of this and pulling the strings to the top. And some of them I do truly believe are lost cause in terms of reaching their humanity. There's like some of these bazillionaires, like there is something profoundly wrong with their psyches. I am not like kumbaya, everyone is going to come together. No, but what I'm saying is like the vast majority of the lay people need to stand together against the powers that be that have created this division among us while they just continue destroying everything, like the water. So that's my message for tonight. Sometimes I don't know if I'm just like talking into the void, and I never know where it's going to go in the algorithm and all that. And I know that I don't keep my videos to like 3 minutes like the social media wants you to, but some people have been reaching out and saying that they're listening. So I'm going to keep talking because that's something that I can do. And if there's a topic you want to like talk out with me, or something that comes up in the video you want me to talk more about or explain, or you want to share with me like how it's landing for you or what you're working through, people have been doing that, and I'm here for it. I might even start doing like some little discussion groups or Q&A groups, and maybe some workshops or classes, because I'm really passionate about this topic. It's really, I believe in it. And I believe that this time is now. Oh yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention before I go is about a year ago after the LA fires, I started this group about survival skills. And I had some people come in and talk about like planting a garden and like, mutual aid and like first aid, like a street medic and stuff. And then it kind of faded away, got down to like 6 people, and then it just stopped. But someone reached out today because Facebook had like invited them, and I just think that actually in some ways our world is more primed to realize that we need to learn these skills, like collective survival skills, community survival skills, and share together. So if that's something that does resonate with you, I have a Facebook group. It's there, it exists, and I'm willing to try to reactivate that, because I think in some ways, at least this country is a lot more aware that we are going to save us and we are going to take care of ourselves and each other more than anyone from the top is going to come down and make sure everyone has food and water and shelter. So that's something that I'd like to see more people sharing about. So anyway, thanks for listening.